Hey guys. Now today, again, we are going to talk about the royal screw. Oh man, that tastes so fucking good. Now, what do I mean by the royal screw? Because I'm sure that some of you haven't heard of it. Now, what the royal screw is, and what I mean by that, is the simple fact that, as we were kids, right? And I remember when I was in kindergarten, back when I was actually in school before I was homeschooled, we were taught that we were special and that if we worked hard enough, that we would, get to places that were good and that life would treat us well. Well, and then I grew up. And then I saw reality. And that is what we're talking about in the royal screw here. Now, I'll just try to get to the video here. And this video is called, okay, as I get to it, it is called Why More Older Workers Are Finding Themselves Unemployed as Retirement Approaches. Now, this actually happens quite a bit more often than you think. So let's listen in.
Many Americans say they focus on saving for retirement when they reach their 50s. But what happens if you lose your job at that age? Our economics correspondent Paul Solman and his producer Diane Lincoln Estes look at that challenge as part of our Making Sense series, Unfinished Business.
Every morning, 59-year-old Jay Christ leaves his home in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, and drives to work at a local print shop.
I'm a fulfillment associate, fulfilling individual orders,
Yeah,
and
just
then
like me,
making
actually.
sure that all the product that's printed and needs to be distributed locally is delivered. So, like a delivery driver.
Chris,
That's funny, actually. I actually just happened to work for a company that has a fulfillment center, actually, just like this for a printing company. What a coincidence.
spent his career in a higher echelon of the printing industry than this. For almost 30 years, Christ was a manager at printing giant R.R. Donnelley.
I've always
Yep,
supervised,
big
always
company.
managed, and there was part of me like, I'll be one of those guys that retires here.
No such luck. He was laid off in 2016. His plans derailed when the firm reorganized. Economist Richard Johnson's work has shown.
Now, if you don't know what reorganizing means, that means that at one point the company went under a new owner and they quote unquote reorganized.
That Christ is far from alone.
We found that more than half, 56%, of workers experienced an involuntary employer-related job separation after age 50.
Christ, who'd made $100,000 a year.
Now, listen, of course, what he just said. After the age 50. Now, why is that? I wonder why. Well, that's because after the age 50, if you retire and you have certain benefits rights, that means that you get really good benefits. And let me tell you something. A lot of these guys that get to their age 50, doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter how good of a person you are, it just happens. All of a sudden, something will just come up, right, at the end of the year, by within a year or two of you getting these so-called benefits, right? And then they either lay you off or they find a reason to get rid of you. So they won't have to pay for those benefits. So good luck to anybody trying to get these kinds of benefits.
Began looking for a comparable job, but he soon realized
Where I had been after all those years with salary and benefits and things was not what I was going to get if I stayed here.
No joke.
But also at the same time, I remember looking at this, I still had kids in school. I had bought a house, all the things that kind of hold you to a place.
Christ is a case in point of what, in our ostensibly booming economy, so many workers in their 50s and older face these days, says Professor Teresa Ghilarducci.
They're less mobile. Older workers are sticky to their geographical place. They have relationships with people in the community. They have a house for all the reasons that we all know. And so they can't move to get a better job.
Christ also faced another hurdle shared with Americans turning his age, 59. 400 of us every single minute
a lot of companies don't want to hire somebody who's 50 plus and needs has a salary expectation that's above what they're willing to pay. So they can easily say it's because of salary or wage.
That's because a lot of companies don't want to pay that kind of wage for experience. Lots of companies, I'll say 99% of them, don't like to do something called investing. And so when it comes to somebody with his kind of experience and they want the same kind of pay that they used to get from their previous job, even though they're aged 50 plus, well, they more than likely aren't going to get that.
Chris only found the job at local H&H Printing after about a year of looking.
Had to take a heck of a cut, hey, but I was happy about it. It's hourly. It's about $40,000 a year.
That's not unusual, says Richard Johnson.
Almost all workers who lose a job at older ages end up making much less on the new job than they did on the old job. We found that only 10% of people earned as much on the new job as on the old job. And on average, they tended to earn only about half as much.
Pretty much.
Chris' printing job doesn't pay enough, so he also works nights from 7:30 to 2 a.m. at Planet Fitness for $12 an hour.
It's a jerk.
Now, the reason why he would have to undertake another job like this is because, I'm not sure if they explain it in this video, but the reason why somebody would have to do that is because you get benefits in your 401k. All of that money that you have saved up in your 401k gets spent on your mortgage and other things that you haven't paid off yet. So even if you have like over $100,000 in that account, 401k account, all that money drops, just goes away. Especially if you're trying to move to a smaller home, then that mortgage is going to become more and more expensive. Because if you're moving into a new house, right, then you're going to have to pay the people that, have sold your house, which is going to take away all of your money, is what's going to happen.
Front counter service, and you're checking people in, and you're helping them, helping with their memberships. So it's about 4.5 hours.
Half a night's sleep, and then back to H&H Printing.
If I wanted to lay down right now and fall asleep, it would be easy.
But he can't, not even on Sundays, when Chris heads to a third job at a local brewery.
It's nice to get, a little bit of cash for tips, because it's just a minimum wage job otherwise. Because then you have, a little extra money, and you're not waiting, between paychecks and having to manage all of that.
With 3 jobs plus $14,000 a year pension from R.R. Donnelly, Chris still brings in barely 70% of his previous income.
Can I manage to continue to work this many hours, this many jobs? My mind says I can, I will, I have to. I mean, if I start thinking I can't or it's too hard, then mentally you wouldn't be able to manage it. So long as I'm, stay healthy and can manage it, and I'll have to.
Chris' younger daughter is in college. His wife's depression and anxiety have worsened since his layoff, preventing her from working.
I see my wife and her, the depression and the physical things that she's gone through. And so there's that part of it too. I mean, just the economics of, care, medicine these days is just, it's outrageous. It's like so I try not to think about that, because that almost would, put you over the edge. Just do whatever you got to do to keep everything else afloat. But
so many older workers are struggling to do just that, says Ghilarducci.
When you look at real lives and you see the turmoil in their work life between, let's say, 59 to 63, and their health, there's a lot of shocks that are going on with their spouse and with themselves, because they're interdependent.
Which raises the stakes for workers like Jay Crist to stay healthy.
I was unloading off of one of the trucks and fell onto my shoulder and back. Thank God I didn't break anything. I didn't, tear anything. I didn't cut anything. I didn't lose any days of work. And it wasn't, I was just lucky as hell that And I thought, man, that's all it would have taken.
Traditional retirement, as for so many once secure older Americans, is out of the question.
I pretty much blew through all of the 401k stuff I had. So at this point, there's like really no savings. I mean, the house and still paying a mortgage on it is.
See, there's
that's
a
what I have.
mortgage.
It's frustrating that, you know, in my mind, somebody who's done the things you kind of were told as a kid and as you were growing up you needed to do, you know, stay at a job, work, learn, you know, be helpful, get promotions, do right by people. And then you find yourself at this point in your career like going, that doesn't mean shit.
Chris now understands
I realize
what he
the same
didn't
thing.
when
I
he
realize
was
the
in the
same
manager's seat.
I had to lay off an entire family, husband, wife, and daughter. And prior to that, I kept telling them, you guys need to try to do something. You need to try to find something. Now I find myself in that situation like going, that wasn't really helpful to be able to say those things because you can't just go out and find another job. And I was the guy who laid him off. And at least I'm not that asshole anymore.
No, he's not. Jay Crisp works more, is paid less, and now that a third of the workforce is 50 plus, there figure to be many more like him. For the PBS NewsHour, this is Paul Salman.
There's many people like him, actually. But let me tell you what. He's actually doing pretty well for his age, actually. He's actually doing pretty well, to be frank. So, if anything, he should actually consider himself a bit lucky. But at the same time, you can still see that he's having it a bit hard. But yeah, and that's why I call it the royal screw, is because the people who own this country and own the businesses, I just always think it's funny how they always talk about, you know, being a good person, blah blah, and you know, I always think it's funny how they always try to make us think that we live at these workplaces like we live at our jobs, and that if we aren't productive enough, then, you know, this and that's going to happen. But then guess what? Then you get the royal screw, as I call it, and shit happens anyway. It's because when you get older, you know, one, they stop caring about you because, you know, you aren't able to do what you used to be able to do, obviously. And two, they don't want to pay for your experience because they don't want to invest most of the time. And yeah, they kind of just shove you right back into reality. What can I say? And it's just too bad. And it's pretty much going to happen to all of us. I mean, if it hasn't happened already, of course. That being said, I'll just end the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.